Today's case does not involve murder. However, it does involve attempted murder, embezzlement, a gang of meth heads, a mistress, and a preacher's son. And no, this is not a movie. Okay, let's go. John Franklin Howard, who went by Frank, would meet Nancy Shaw at a church in San Marcos, Texas.
Well, this is definitely going to end well. They met at church.
Take me to
Church.
love that. But yes, Texas and church. And by 1983, they would marry in Frank's father's church. Frank was 23 at the time and Nancy was 22. They would go on to have 2 girls and 1 son, Ashley, Jay, and Brianna, and would end up residing in Carrollton, Texas. I heard it as Carrollton. And then some people were like, Carrollton, and I was like, what?
Coral.
Carl. That's how I read it. Nancy would later state that she had an awesome marriage with Frank. They had their ups and downs, but they always worked through their issues. She would describe him as being kind, gentle, and loving, and that he was very involved with the children when they were growing up. He would coach their soccer teams, attend whatever games or theatre events they were involved in. That was the one, yeah. That one right there. The couple even sang in the choir at their local church and hold a Bible study for youth groups in their home.
I sang in a choir?
As we always hear time and time again from the outside looking in, this couple had it all. Cracks would start to show, however, when the kids would leave home and Frank would take on a new client in his accounting firm by the name of Richard Rayleigh in 2009.
Did he rail Richard Rayleigh?
Some allegedly still probably here, I don't know. America's allegedly. He's a strong Texas man.
For legal reasons.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
But some of the names in this case, I was like, that's not real. Your name is not Richard Rayleigh.
Maybe it is.
There's actually a few Richard Rayleighs apparently as well when I was doing some searching, so there you go. You see, Richard was a very important client who made millions as a defense contractor. And I say defense contractor because, to be honest, allegedly, it sounded sus, allegedly, to me, that he apparently sold ice to troops in Iraq. Allegedly. This new client would mean that Frank would be required to travel more, leaving Nancy at home. Having Richard as a client meant that Frank was offered office space in Grapevine, Texas, with use of his private jet. And Nancy was a stay-at-home mum by now, that the kids had grown up and moved out. It was getting a bit hard for her being alone all the time. So I'm sorry, this man does not exist. Allegedly, why are you so successful and you're taking your business to the son of a preacher, to do your accounting and then become the CFO of millions of dollars?
Million?
Billions, Williams. Twillions. But does that not seem sus? I was looking at that and I was like, why is no one sus on this allegedly?
Allegedly.
I don't know, I've just heard if you throw it around then you're safe, right?
Here's what I think allegedly. Anything to do with the church is bad, allegedly.
Nancy would state that she could feel a distance growing between the two, and boy, oh boy, was she not wrong.
Not wrong.
She was not wrong. Sometimes those spidey senses. I also want to mention that Nancy wasn't just sitting at home. She would keep her husband's schedule, serve and volunteer in the PTA, go on school trips, youth groups. She kept herself busy, but she felt something was off with her husband, and another quote I found was that Nancy raised her kids to love, honour and respect their dad. So Frank, when he took on this big client, I think he also decided to live out a little fantasy he might have had. He had been with his wife for a long time, and on the weekend of July 25th, 2009, Frank was on a business trip in Lake Tahoe. Anyway, it's northeast of San Fran, and dear listeners, wherever you are in the world, I need to know, what were you taught in school to remember your north, south, east and west?
Never eat soggy Weet-Bix.
Yeah, that's what we say.
But also, do you guys know what Weet-Bix are?
Yeah, so it's a cereal.
Kind of.
Iron Men.
That's
that's Nutrigrain.
Far out.
But it's still, they made it out like it was good to have.
For us, it was footy kids.
Weet-Bix footy kids are Weet-Bix kids.
So footy kids just means people who played rugby.
Yeah, that's right.
They're Weet-Bix. Pigs, kids.
Yeah, so let us know. That's what we say, and yeah, I want to hear what you guys say. So Lake Tahoe is exactly what it sounded like, because Frank met a woman at a casino. Her name was Susan, or is it Suzanne? I don't know. But she was a dental hygienist. She was currently married, but had separated from her husband and was just going through the divorce process. Now you might be thinking, but Ashley, we know what some men are like, some not all, and maybe she didn't know he was married.
Yeah.
Oh, she definitely knew. He told her he wasn't happy, and I couldn't find her age anywhere, but plenty of reports stated she was early 50s, blonde hair, and a youthful face with a perky demeanour.
Here's a spoiler alert, kids.
Yeah?
They always know. It's only after the fact, when they get caught out, that they say, I didn't know.
Us women, most of us, are detectives. You know his auntie, you know his dad, you know his whole family tree before you've met them.
That's right.
Don't tell me you didn't know.
Women are crazy.
Crazy.
That's why I love them.
Yeah. It didn't take long before things became more intimate.
Oh, no way.
No way.
No way.
No way. Also, I found some reports that stated whilst Frank was busy making friends with his mistress, his wife was on a mission trip to Africa with her youngest. Frank's double life would go on for 3 years before things started to catch up to him. He would travel to Florida, California, Europe, and is it Kuwait? Kuwait, which is a country in West Asia. If you didn't know, now you know, because I had to look. Educate. Susan was very well taken care of by Frank. They would talk constantly. He would see her every few weeks. He paid for her kids' softball tournaments, paid for college for one of her kids, rented and then brought her a boat. Oh, and he also brought her a $900,000 house in which he paid for in cash, and a condo in Tahoe worth about $380,000. You might be thinking, what about his wife? Yeah, we'll get into that shortly because I'm not done. Yeah.
In cash. So this was illegal money.
Yeah, I mean, I did say there's embezzlement. Preacher's son.
Well, the son of a preacher man.
He took Suzanne on trips, took her to the Super Bowl, took her kids to lots of places. They even went to the Bahamas, and he'd fly her in his private jet when he could. That wasn't his, it was his boss's. I should probably say what didn't he do, because she was a very well-kept woman.
Oh, I bet she was.
Oh, yeah. I think around this time, she also told her kids Frank was separated when he really wasn't. I also forgot he set up a retirement fund for her, sending her a total of $700,000 when she lost her health insurance. Frank put her on the payroll of Rayleigh.
The funny thing is, though, like, I wonder, because she's the mistress, right? So this money that he's got, that he's somehow gotten control of, is just all illegal money. So it's like, goodness sake, I will spend it.
Goodness sake.
On whatever, on this little mistressy little slut, because whatever, but I'll spend the actual legal money on my wife. I'm married to her and I love her. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, if it's free money.
Oh, yeah.
You'll pay for a hoe.
Well, wouldn't your wife be asking questions if you're...
Well, yeah, she can't track illegal money.
Mm-hmm. Her relationship with Frank, even though he was married and she knew he was married, was apparently good. They rarely fought, and the only fight was over Frank leaving his wife. If he says he's going to leave his wife, he ain't, and if he keeps saying it over 3 years, he ain't.
I know, and when he says, I'm going to, it's just not a good time right now, that means he's not gonna.
Something's come up, can't do it now, it's Christmas.
Her mental health is really bad, I'm really scared that she'll hurt herself. No, bitch. You're just a wimp.
Frank told her that he and Nancy now slept in separate rooms and he'd file for divorce soon, but something always came up and would stop him from doing so. A graduation, an illness, or Nancy's fragile mental health.
I'm telling you right now.
It's true.
All men are the same. The straight ones. No, all of them.
Yeah. Now you're getting the gist of this guy doing some shady work, moving around money that obviously was not his. I mean, affording his mistress all these lavish gifts. You know he ain't working for that. So let's pause on Frank and his secret double life, and let me introduce you to Billy Earl Johnson. It is 2009. He's in his early 50s. You can't make this shit up. He is in his early 50s, sunken in face, thin and wiry with a goatee and tattoos. He loved meth and motorcycles.
Hell yeah.
Whatever you think he looked like, a white boy from Texas, you got it right. He was forever in and out of jail, and it would be through a mutual acquaintance that he would meet a man by the name of Mr. John.
Mr. John?
Mr. John had spoken and then met with Billy, and when they met, Billy slid into the passenger seat of the Lexus, where Mr. John handed Billy an envelope containing $60,000 cash.
Before slipping into him.
Along with a photo of a woman he wanted murdered.
I was going to say it was literally a assassination request.
And he wanted it to be made to look like an accident.
Sorry, hold on. You're getting this old white cracky.
The photo was Nancy Howard.
Yeah, of course. You didn't, you could have left that blank and we would know who it was going to be for. This little methed out, cracky, skinny white man.
You can't make this
make
up.
It look like an accident.
And we're just at the start. This is not even the sprinkle of coke on top of this meth addict involvement. We're not even...
Oh, this is more toward what's his face who's trying to do
I know.
The kill for hire.
Now, if you have put 2 and 2 together and got 5, this may not be the podcast for you. But if you realise that Mr. John is actually John Franklin Frank Howard, then you would be correct, like we were. So what happens when you give a con man with a meth addiction $60K? Well, he goes out and he buys everyone drinks and dinner and buys lots of drugs and just parties. Of course, it wouldn't be long before he was back in jail and charged with possession. Whatever he had left of the $60K, which I'm sure wasn't much, was confiscated. So Billy decided to contact Mr. John, told him he'd need a bit more money. John would bail him out and continue to give money to Billy, and by continue, I mean nearly $2 million over the 3 years in cash.
Find someone else to... No, don't find someone else to kill her. You chose the right one.
Yeah.
You chose the right one.
You see, the funny, not so funny thing is Billy was never actually going to go through with killing this poor woman. He just wanted to see how long he could string this Mr. John along for.
And this guy was giving him a free ride to Drug Town. I like him.
He was great. I loved him. Another funny thing was that Billy, in a way, was just like Mr. John, always making excuses as to why the job couldn't go ahead. Just like Frank making excuses on leaving his wife. I think their phone calls and meetups would even turn into some sort of third life, a triple life of sorts, where Mr. John would plot ways for Billy and his gang to kill Nancy. They would make it look like a home burglary. He was sure to tell them that there was around $40K worth of jewelry in the house, and if they needed to, they could set the house on fire to cover their tracks. He could beat her to death with a baseball bat while scrapbooking with the neighbours, beat her to death with a tire iron during her book club, have her shot with a rifle while she was having lunch with friends, and Mr. John told Billy he could even spray the whole restaurant.
And they met at church.
And he was the son of a preacher man.
Yes, he was.
Now you might be thinking, but hello Ashley, why didn't Mr. John / Frank / this piece of poop just get a divorce? Well, besides being a good, God-fearing man who had already been divorced somehow before marrying Nancy, this was not an option. Because old Frankie boy had gotten himself in the embezzlement business, if you hadn't already figured out. So a divorce and combing through finances may actually bring up some other things he didn't want. So he thought his best option was to pay a meth addict to kill his wife.
So stupid.
It's just dumb. It's dumb.
So dumb.
Billy was a bit sus on this Mr. John, thinking maybe he could be a cop or maybe he was just some guy that needed to vent. But Billy was more than happy to take the money from Mr. John, and his partner Stacey was rather smart as well. After one meeting with Billy, she snapped a photo of this Mr. John and told Billy it was for insurance because this man had no idea what he wanted and he could be playing them all for all they knew.
Smart.
Methany. Billy just thought Mr. John was as dumb as a rock and had money to burn.
Dumb as a rock, I like that.
It wouldn't take long before Billy and his partner Stacey were back in jail for who knows what kind of a conviction, and it would end up being Stacey's 19-year-old son Dustin who started to deal with this Mr. John. Dustin wasn't the brightest kid, so I do feel a little bit sorry for the mess he got himself in, but when he contacted Mr. John to help get his mother out of jail, Mr. John replied with something along the lines of, well, you can help your mother out by doing the job you're meant to do. I don't know, like 3 years ago?
Ooh.
So he's starting to say time is up.
Yeah.
Since Dustin's mum and I guess stepdad were in jail, he was currently living with a man called Michael Speck, who was actually Billy's nephew, and this will all come into the story later, but I just thought I'd let you know. So Mr. John and Dustin meet up with some money to bail his mum out of jail, along with some information to maybe go case out the address at Carlton and see what you can do. Around July 2012, Dustin did indeed decide to go case out Nancy at her home, except he decided to go out and buy the biggest bag of meth and smoked it between himself and his neighbours before deciding to make the trip out to Carlton.
Of course.
I think they lived like an hour away from Nancy. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Well, let's get really high and drive a car for an hour. Yeah.
It's a smart idea. So Dustin ends up casing the house, but meth addict, and he would end up being pulled over by the police, where a female officer that I want to say her name was Officer Wright was super switched on and saw some young kid driving around slowly with his headlights off. At first, Dustin told her he was looking for his uncle's house, and then he just talks about going in circles, and then he was asked to step out of the car because meth and far away from home, driving around with the lights off.
With
In suburbia.
The lights off. Oh,
yeah.
because he's high. He probably thought he could see lights.
Probably. Probably thought he was flying. I don't know what meth does, but I assume it does
I wouldn't know.
something. Questioning wouldn't go any better. Dustin later would tell officers that the reason he was in town wasn't because he couldn't find his uncle's house. It was because he was here on the order of a Mr. John.
Okay. All right. I'll hear him out. All right. I think he's an idiot, but all right, I'll hear him out.
So he's there for a Mr. John, and although he didn't want to cause any issues, he was actually a hired hitman.
Oh my God.
A contract killer of sorts.
Oh my God. He told the cops this?
Here for a hit on a woman in
Oh my God. Okay.
He told this to... I'm not making this up. He told that to the cops when they pulled him over, and she was like... So he's told the story, and she was just like, meth addict, so pop him in the cell. Yeah, so she felt for this young kid, like he was freaking young, and told him pretty much to spend the night, sober up to an extent, I guess, and head home and never come back to this town again. Yeah, I don't know.
And
But
he was
like,
on meth.
I don't even know how long does that take to...
God knows, but she would have been able to test for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe she just thought he was drunk.
Yeah, I don't know. Or I think she just felt sorry for him, so she was just like, I'll put him in the cell, let him sleep it off because he's talking about being a hitman. This 19-year-old kid is a contracted killer of a Mr. John.
I can't. You can't make that up.
You can't. Any of this, you can't. It was Saturday, August 18th, 2012. Nancy would head to the First Baptist Church in Carlton for a woman's tea or something of the sorts. When she pulled into the car park, she was none the wiser that a vehicle was actually following her. After she left the church, she headed to Taco Bueno and picked up some dinner.
Good tacos.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I do love me some Mexican food. From there, she headed home because we know Frank, of course, was out of town on a business trip, cough, cough, at his mistress's. He was with his mistress. Nancy pulled into the garage, got out of her car whilst carrying her purse and her takeaway bag. And good on you, girl. It takes me ages to sort my life out and get out of the car. All of a sudden, someone grabbed her around the neck and put a gun to her head. She was so shocked that when the stranger asked for her purse, she shoved her takeaway order in his hands instead. I was like, that would be me.
Here, have this.
Yeah. Nancy had faced the man and saw he had facial hair, was wearing a baseball cap and holding a silver gun. He lifted the gun and Nancy cried, "Jesus save me," and the man pulled the trigger. A .380 caliber bullet, which I was like, yeah, I know what that is. So it's just like a handgun. I don't know, guns aren't the usual here, bought at shopping centres. Oh my God, America, I love you guys. I actually do, but we need to fix some things. So the gun goes off and somehow this bullet entered Nancy's left eye, possibly temple area, because I found differing reports, travelled through her sinus cavity, down her throat, and stopped in her right lung. Obviously thinking he had killed the woman, the man drove off with her purse, leaving Nancy bleeding on the garage floor.
What angle was she in and what angle did he shoot her in for it to travel down?
Somehow. They were like, I don't know how this happened.
Did it like ricochet?
That's what I mean. Someone was watching over her, like for it to... Because I saw reports of it saying temple and then other in left eye.
Yeah, I don't understand the drop there.
That's what I mean. And everyone was kind of like, how did that happen? Nancy laid unconscious on the the ground just being shot. A quote from Nancy later would state, "When I came to, I thought, you're going to die. And then that's when God spoke to me and said, get up. He gave me the physical strength to get up." Somehow, this woman, who had just been shot in the head, managed to pull herself to her car where she tried for the emergency rescue service button, which didn't go off, and I didn't know that was a thing. So she pulled herself inside, disarmed the house alarm, which in hindsight she said later on, but it was just habit, I guess. Anyway, she pulled herself in, looked at the mirror, and I quote, "I looked at myself and all I could see was blood from my eye down to my beautiful purple shirt. At that point, I didn't realize that I had lost my left eye." So I do not know how this woman who just got shot was able to pull herself inside and somehow call 911. And you can hear it all online, and the strength of this woman, I cannot even. And because I haven't heard anyone say otherwise, I'm going to show you a snippet now of that 911 call. So just remember, she's been shot in the face.
Carrollton 911, what's the address of the emergency?
I've been shot, please.
What's the address, ma'am?
1525 Boulevard Way.
What's the phone number you're calling from in case I lose you?
972 939
Tell me exactly what happened.
I'm being carried in my garage. I was getting out of my car. And around me, one person shot me. Please help me.
Yes, ma'am, I've already got help started your way. Don't hang up, and I'm going to get some questions answered from you, okay? How many people was it?
It just wasn't aware.
Did you see him?
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that woman was not protected that day.
I think she was very lucky. Political answer. She was very lucky.
Emergency services arrived and Nancy's children were contacted, who then phoned Frank to give him the awful news. Of course, Frank was on a business trip in Suzanne's fortress when he heard the shocking news of his wife. Apparently, he broke down crying and Suzanne had to help him walk. It was one of his daughters that actually called, and I'm sure Frank was shocked when he found out that Nancy was alive and currently in hospital. Doctors would advise that although Nancy's lung had collapsed and that the bullet would remain where it was for the foreseeable future, she would need to be on a ventilator for a few days. She'd lost her eye, her throat was torn, and she had extensive nerve damage, but she would live. Besides having to have, some cosmetic surgery and stuff like that, she was good. Frank visited Nancy in hospital, did the whole doting husband, but of course, as any true crime fan would know, who is the number one suspect?
Always first time, always the husband.
The husband did it. He stayed by Nancy's side until officers obviously asked him down for questioning. Now, someone forgot it's 2012 iPhones, so obviously when they asked for Frank's phone to confirm him messaging his wife that day and where he was, he handed it over not knowing that he would in fact expose not only his mistress, but his secret life, well, triple life, double life, I don't know. He got busted.
Triple, quadruple.
Yeah.
You got caught, buddy.
Busted. Now, because Frank is such a caring guy, was, let's say, wanting some redemption, so whilst his wife lay in hospital after being shot, he told her he'd been having an affair going on 3 years and blah, blah, blah. All while she's in hospital.
Honey, you know how you were shot in the face? I've been cheating on you for 3 years with a mistress.
Some reports said it was over the phone as well, but some said it was in person. And I was like, if that was over the phone...
Well, look, that's even colder, but it's kind of like either way, she was literally in hospital recovering from being shot in the head.
She was in ICU for like 2 days in a coma.
At his request.
Yeah. Because police knew he was having an affair, he wanted to be the one to tell her. So now he decided to tell her while she was laying in hospital.
He was going to be outed.
Yeah, exactly. Nancy, being the amazing woman she was, unfortunately, she believed that her and her husband could work this out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Police worked on the case and it didn't take long before they started to put the pieces together. They found footage showing the car tailing Nancy at the church, with one of them even getting out of the car to go inside and then went back to the car. The officer that originally pulled over Dustin when he was all methed out came forward to share her experience, and slowly pieces started to fall into place. And remember old Billy Boy? Yeah, he also contacted the police while he was in jail and was more than happy to let them know about Mr. John. Nancy would be horrified when Frank was arrested, and everyone thought it was all a huge misunderstanding. I mean, Frank, as quoted by many, was the epitome of a good Christian man. His bond hearing, plenty of people showed up in support, providing testimonies, and his children supported him too. His trial took place in August 2014. It was a show of sorts, if you could say that. There was plenty of witnesses, motel managers, and his mistress even took to the stand and was said to be giggling nervously. No.
At what?
I don't know.
What in that situation is giggle-worthy?
Billy testified too, and I'm not sure if the report is true because I could find like interrogation footage, but not a lot of courtroom footage. So I'm not sure if the reports are true, but apparently when Billy took the stand, he looked Frank straight in the eyes when he said he never planned to kill Nancy and he was just happy taking Mr. John's money.
Hell yeah.
The picture of Mr. John that Stacey took also came in handy. Frank's former boss testified too and would state that Frank had embezzled $30 million from him, which was used to buy things for his mistress and fund the meth gang. Now, want to know Frank's defense? What do you think it could be? What do you possibly think his defense could be?
Nothing would ever make sense to me for I don't think there is.
I also want you to bear in mind that some of the evidence was even phone calls while Billy was in jail and Mr. John was calling him.
That
So
doesn't make it
recorded
any easier.
conversations.
Wow, what an idiot. I don't look. I wouldn't
can't?
even be able to make an
Yeah.
excuse at that point. I'd say I'm a piece of shit. I paid a guy to kill my wife because I just didn't want to be in the marriage anymore.
His defense was he'd been blackmailed by a bunch of meth heads because they found out about his affair and they were going to tell Nancy, and it was just this and that.
Wait. So this man said that he was blackmailed by meth heads.
Yeah.
Let's remember, he funded someone's entire career of methism.
Yeah.
Because they found out somehow, first of all, how is he involved with meth heads? I'm pretty sure they're not a part of his actual real business, but they found out and then they threatened to tell Nancy. So the only reasonable solution at that point was that instead of them telling Nancy, they wanted him to kill Nancy, and he was meant to pay one of the other meth addicts to do it, but this meth addict wasn't really related, I guess, in that kind of way to the other meth addicts. So something is not... This puzzle has all of the same piece.
Yeah, the trial lasted around 3 weeks and it only took the jury 2 hours to find him guilty.
I'm surprised it was even 2 hours.
Yeah. He was charged with... Now, I couldn't find exactly what it was because there's not a whole lot of info written down. So he was either charged with solicitation to commit capital murder or attempted capital murder, depending where you read. But he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 30 years. His children, who had supported him from the beginning and even left their mother to go through this alone, because the trial caused a lot of tension between the family. And I'm sorry, but your mother was shot. You should be with her to support her.
You're on mum's side.
Every report I had, it spoke about how the kids sat behind their father. They weren't present for all of the evidence, only certain parts, and they were adult kids. They just could not believe that their father had done this, and they were angry at their mother.
For getting shot?
Yeah, I know. It's messed up. It's messed up. The daughter came out and she's like, he passed a lie detector test. And it's like, honey, your dad embezzled $30 million and had a mistress. He's capable of anything.
I mean, did he spend like $2+ million on you, Betty Sue? Bet he didn't.
The 2 men who were in the car would be named by Billy, although he would not say who did the driving and who did the shooting. The men were Michael Speck, Billy's nephew, and Michael's former cellmate, Michael Lawrence. As I said earlier, police combed through the calls of Billy and Frank, because yes, there were calls of them while he was in jail. So Michael Lawrence's ex came forward at one point as well and said he had confessed to shooting Nancy to her. He also said that Speck was the driver, but because there was no real hard evidence, both men were charged with aggravated robbery and conspiracy to commit murder. Michael Lawrence would take some form of a plea deal after a sentence and then appeal, and would end up being sentenced to 10 years in prison, and the other Michael 12. And that, dear mung beans, is the absolute chaotic mess that is John Franklin Howard, aka Mr. John. That would be a movie, that would.
I gotta tell you, it should be though, because they're like, it's not even so much that there are twists and turns, because it's almost expected.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just that messed up.
Yeah, complete mess. And I cannot believe I hadn't heard of this one before.
I'm also shocked.
Yeah, and I was like, I know it didn't involve murder, but it was very interesting to research.
Well, it definitely involved crime and drugs and attempted murder, assassination plots, so
Yeah.
what a good case. That was good. Not good for poor old Nancy, but
No, she apparently remarried and living her best life. And on that note, goodbye.
bye guys.
The girl, she's an amazing girl. John Franklin Howard, who went by Frank.
It's that shit I'm telling you.
Oh, it's gonna be. I'm glad. Maybe you should have gone first. No, Mum. I love you so much.
I just need to calm my phone.
See, no, but that's what I love, and you're like. It's good because this is just gonna be the whole outtake.
Sure.
Oh no! I did tell Andrew I was gonna be late today, so I'm gonna pee in my pants. You haven't even told the story.
I think I've one puddle tonight. I don't need to clean up a second.
Nancy would later state that she had an amazing
Remix.
Yeah, did you like that? Tahoe, he met a woman at a toe. Yeah.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Ooh, and he was shit in bed.